what do I think authenticity is, right? Because everybody's got a different definition of what it is. I think that it's always showing up as exactly who you are. Nobody in this room should be trying to pretend to be Brad. Nobody in this room should be pretending to be Sam Taggart. Nobody should be pretending to be Gary Vee, right? You should be figuring out exactly who you are and then unapologetically showing up as that human every day. Why? Because I believe that nobody wants to work for a fake.
You train, tolerate, or terminate, and we don't tolerate. So which one do you want? You want to train or do you want to terminate? And I leave it up to them. And they say, well, I'd like to train. And I say, perfect, great. Folks, what's this show about? People always say, well, it's mindset, skill set, and habits. That's exactly right. So you can always be sure that what we will be focusing on and talking about and discussing every single time is going to be in those three categories. The only other one that I would say that might not be technically in those would be the love category. But we leave that one until later, because normally when you have your mindset right, your skill set right, your habits right, you make a bunch of money, and with a bunch of money, there's a whole bunch of love going around. I find that the more money I get, the more love gets thrown my way. And they say, money can't buy love. Is that true? Well, I don't know. I mean, again, in my experience, well, money can buy you love. The question is how do you define love? You got to start with the definition. We got to start with your definition. But anyway, life always tends to throw people curveballs. Some of us end up, broke, sad, lonely. Some of us end up rich, buff and happy. What's the difference between the two?
Mindset, skill set, and habits.
Thank you. I was about to say, guys, after a fucking year, man, you guys are just like starting to get real slow. It's the mindset, the skill set, and the habits. That's the difference. It's the choices they're making. You got to be habitually growing. So the mindset, the skill set, and the habits, just remember those things. If you just focus on those three areas every time, even when we're not on this call, you focus on those three areas. If you don't have everything you want, know that it's your mindset, it's your skill set, or it's your habits. Now, the overall, I guess, arching umbrella would be relationships. Because if you ask me, the relationships are they take precedent over money and everything, the relationship. Because if you focus on the money, the relationship could be ignored and get damaged, and then the money stops. So if you focus on the relationship and it stays strong, the money's always going to take care of itself, right? So you always focus on the relationship. So I'm considering adding a fourth one, skill set or mindset, skill set, habits, and relationships, because those are the real four key areas. And the relationships we can all control every single day. The question is who are you introducing yourself to? Who are you going out of your way to be introduced to? How many new people know who you are and what you do and what you think? Because if the answer is none, that means you didn't make a post on social media. That means you didn't attempt at all to show anybody who you are, which tells me that, you probably have a problem. You have allodoxophobia. You know what that is? Fear of other people's opinion. Look it up. Allodoxophobia. So you've got the fear of other people's opinion. That's why people won't post on social media. Why? Well, they don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look stupid to who? Whoever. So you've got this fear of looking stupid, which causes you to not make a post, which causes you to not technically make a sound. You just sit there and be quiet and then wonder why nobody's paying attention. So you got to find yourself, start, saying what you believe, saying what you think. Next thing you know, the relationships start growing. Next thing you know, you got a network that'd choke a horse. Okay, and if you guys, I know a lot of you guys are building companies. Listen, if you're building companies, you're not gonna be, all by yourself the whole time. You're gonna have to build a team, right? Big companies require big teams 9 times out of 10. So today I brought in my buddy Eric Oberempt, who's sitting here. We just did a podcast. Make sure you guys listen for that episode. But old Eric Oberempt, I'm going to introduce here for a moment. He owns a roofing company, does, good 8 figures in roofing as a company, but he started out talking to people about recovery because apparently he's got a little bit of a story. Earlier on the podcast, I was listening to his story and I'm like, dude, like everybody's an alcoholic, aren't we? Like, come on, we all did coke, bro. Quit acting like it was a big challenge in life. But he has some nuggets for leadership because he built teams that are kicking ass. And then the recovery thing is just a little side thing. So I don't know if we got any addicts in here. Anybody an addict? Nick looks like one. But he used to be what I would say used to be an addict.
Yeah.
An addict. See? An addict. What does that mean? To me, I would want to be an addict, but I'd want to be addicts for positive things. Like, I want to be an addict of success. I want to be an addict of health and reaching potential. That's how you get obsessed. That's how you get addicted. You become an addict for it. But anyway, this isn't about addiction, folks. This is about building a team. Because if you're going to build your company up, you're going to have to, instill some culture in the place. I went for a long time thinking that the culture was a buzzword that was all corporate-y bullshit. Your vision, and your mission, your what's it called? Mission statement? Yeah, mission statement, like corporate-y bullshit. But in reality, it's not, dude. You grow up and you start to learn if everyone doesn't know the right direction to row in, it's harder to get everybody rowing in the same direction. You know what I mean? But when you really look at the most successful organizations out there, they're freaking talking about culture. Okay? They're talking about how do we improve our culture? How do we build a team, a true team that creates other leaders? So almost like a leadership duplication system. And I know everyone in business needs that, and that's what this man is going to talk to you about for the next however long or so. So sit back, get your popcorn, and let me introduce you to Eric Oberempt. I'm just going to give him the monitor. I'm going to pop in from the balcony and pull a Nick Leger on us.
Thanks, Brad.
You're welcome.
What's up, team? How we doing?
Great, man.
Good. Well, thanks for having me. Again, as Brad said, my name is Eric Oberempt. I own a roofing company out of Nebraska and Texas. We've got locations in both. I've been in doing business and doing roofing since I was a little kid. So that's my real background and how I make money. But I also do other things, real estate investment, and all the things that we all do. Enjoy. I hope it's good. He's going to try the new cigar.
You gotta sit here and teach a class.
That's all right. I love doing this shit. I get to help people today. So yeah, like Brad said, we just got done. Oh wait, he's got 12 in the waiting room. He just let people sit in there while he was talking to you guys. That wasn't very nice. Apparently he can't multitask. Holy shit. Look at them all fucking come.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I just let all 12 in that don't know who I am, so I'll reintroduce myself real quick. Yeah. Hey, everybody that's new. I'm Eric Oberempt. Brad just got introducing me to everybody that was already in the room. We just got done filming a podcast, and we were talking about the...
Why can't I take off my camera?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, sorry.
You okay? Okay, I think everybody's here now. I will start over, and I apologize for everybody who already had to listen to me for 2 minutes. So, real quick, my name is Eric Oberempt. Brad brought me in. We did a podcast today. We talked a lot about recovery stuff and whatever, which I speak about a lot. But I own multiple businesses. I have multiple locations for my roofing company. And what Brad was talking about in the beginning was about creating a team. And that, I don't know what stage in y'all's career you're in or what stage your business is in, but what I'm assuming is that everybody in this room is looking to build a business and not have a job. Would that be a fair assessment? Everybody's got that same feeling? Got it. So,
Roofer 2.
Where at?
Frisco, Texas.
Nice. I'm just north of Houston, up in the Woodlands.
Oh, okay, we're about to expand down there.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll be knocking on some of the same doors then.
Yeah, probably.
So one of the things that I learned a while ago was that I realized that I did every job in the business. I did every job in the business, and I knew that I was really good at them. I was really good at all those jobs. But what I also realized was that I couldn't do all of them if I wanted to grow, right? I couldn't do all of them. And I knew that if I got people to do them 75% as good as I could do them, that we would have that opportunity, right, to grow. I didn't know, back then there was no school. There was no school to figure this shit out. I had no idea how to build a team. All I knew was the guys that were out there hiring hundreds of people and having all the turnover and have to hire 100 new sales guys, and which one, if some stuck, great. If some didn't, great too. I decided to go with a little bit different philosophy in that I wanted to build teams that stuck around. So I built a presentation that I'm actually going to be doing on the same stage as Brad in Fort Myers in a week or two. And it's called How to Create a Cult-Like Following Inside of Your Company by Utilizing the Team Method. And the team method, just to kind of start it off, is how to implement trust, empathy, authenticity, and meaning into your people. Because the goal here is to keep people, right? So if you'll bear with me, when I speak and I talk, I tell stories, okay? I don't just give linear facts. And I read something the other day that people retain 75% more lessons when they're told in story. So I choose to tell most of my stuff in stories. I also usually have a slide deck. So again, this was sprung on me an hour ago. So I do not have a slide deck. So again, bear with me as I'm doing this. But to start off with the first pillar that we're talking about, to go into a story, I am an avid scuba diver. Okay, I love. Anybody here scuba dive? Hey, that a girl. So I love scuba diving. It's literally my favorite thing to do. And maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I got this opportunity to go on the scuba diving trip to a place called Tiger Beach. And Tiger Beach is located just north of the Bahamas, and we're going on a shark diving trip. Now, I've dove with sharks before, but I had never dove with tiger sharks. And if any of you know anything about tiger sharks, like they're very big. I've never dove with a 400, 500 pound tiger shark before. And they're also like, they can be aggressive, and they will chew you up. I mean, their teeth are basically saws, right? So like I had no idea what I was getting into at all. To say I was a little bit apprehensive and nervous, would probably be an understatement. And so I get there, we take this 12-hour boat ride to get out to this place. There's no phones, no cell phones, there's no cell reception, there's no internet, anything on the boat. So I'm like alone, not alone, like there's 10 or 15 other people on the boat, but like I'm cut off from the world for 7 days. And we go out onto the back of the boat, and they don't really tell us anything about what we're going to do. All we know is we're going to be diving all day. We're going to go down to about 50 feet and sit on our knees and watch these tiger sharks come in. So I'm out on the back of the boat, and I'm getting geared up into my wetsuit and into my, checking my air, checking my watch and everything. And I look over at the dive master, and the dive master is putting on chainmail. Like, it's the fucking medieval times, guys, and they're putting on chainmail, and I'm sitting here with a black wetsuit on, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, what are we doing? Why do you have chainmail on? And I have a wetsuit, and then I look, and he's got a trash can full of 1-inch PVC sticks. Everybody knows what a 1-inch PVC stick looks like, right? So I look at him, and I'm like, what are we going to do with a 1-inch PVC stick? Do you want me to poke at the shark when they're coming around? And he's like, no, don't poke at the shark. Don't ever poke at the shark. They do not like it when you poke at them. When you go down, you're going to get on your knees, and you're going to put the stick, hold on, sorry, somebody's coming in. You're going to put the stick down on the ground, and you're going to hold it there. And you're just going to hold that stick firm, And then if a tiger shark comes at you, you're not going to lean it into them. You're going to let them bump it, because when they bump it, they feel that it's plastic and they know that it's not food, and they're going to veer off to the side. I was like, will they? Is that what's going to happen? So I'm sitting on the back of this boat, and I'm staring out into the abyss, deciding what to do. And when you stare out into the abyss, sometimes things get really clear. But when you're at Lake Powell, everybody know where Lake Powell is? It's not exactly an abyss, right? I don't think they have tiger sharks there. But this is where I found myself about 4 or 5 years ago. I was on this trip, and I became friends with a gentleman. Does anybody here know who Sam Taggart is?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm good buddies with Sam. And I met Sam 5, 6, 7 years ago at a conference. And I just went up. I was like, I should probably know this guy, right? And I went up and introduced myself to him. And about 2 or 3 months later, he called me out of the blue and asked me to join his mastermind group, his circle. And I was like, dude, you're like crazy. Like, why in the hell would I join a mastermind group with some long-haired Mormon kid from Utah that I have absolutely nothing in common with? Like, we have nothing in common, Sam. And he's like, not only should you join my mastermind, we're going to Mexico in 5 days. And I need you to book a plane ticket and come to Mexico with me. And I'm like, you're absolutely nuts. And I looked at my wife and I was like, this crazy Mormon kid.
They're attacking. What's that? Do you think Epstein killed himself sincerely? Do you think we're moving towards civil war?
Okay, I'm gonna try and mute him. So I look at my wife and I'm like, this crazy Mormon kid wants me to go to Mexico with him. And she's like, well, do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I haven't done anything uncomfortable in a while. Like, maybe I should go. So I made a decision. I booked a flight. I went to Mexico. We did some crazy ass shit. I sat on a river for 12 hours with no food. All I could do was journal. Did all this crazy shit. And I started to buy into what this guy was selling, right? Well, fast forward a little bit, and I end up on this Lake Powell trip. And I show up at Lake Powell with there's 15 other dudes on this boat. We're living on a houseboat for 5 days. And I show up and everybody is 15 years younger than me. And most of them are also from the same background as Sam. So they're all young and super religious, I assume. So on the last night we're there, we have to do a feedback circle. Has anybody done a feedback circle before? All right. So we have to do a feedback circle. And basically they tell everybody there that, whatever you've experienced from these people in the last 3 days, we want you to give them feedback on how they can improve or, whatever, or what they do bad or whatever it is. So they tell you to stand in a circle, and I'm not like a woo-woo guy, right? And I'm standing in this circle and I have to open up. I got to open my arms up like this, right? So I can accept the feedback. And this young kid, Cody, comes up and he decides to tell me that I need to change the way that I speak.
I know you think.
That was great fucking timing, wasn't it?
That's wonderful.
Oh my God. Told me that I had to change the way that I speak and the way that I carry myself and that I can be offensive. And on the outside, I was standing there and I was like, I accept your feedback. I accept your feedback. On the inside, I'm screaming. And I'm like, you can go fuck yourself. I was so mad. I was so angry. And I remember that exercise got over and I went down and I went to bed. And the next morning I get up and Sam's taking me back to the dock. We're going home and we're alone. And Sam's asking me hey, how was the trip? Did you enjoy the trip? Did you like the circle? Are you going to rejoin next year? And I'm getting ready to tell him exactly what I thought. And sometimes you need to tell people exactly what you're thinking. Other times, you need to hold back and give them just enough rope to hang themselves, right? So I don't have my slide deck here, but generally at this point, I throw up a picture of me weighing 310 pounds with a big fat head, right? 15, 18 years ago, I was, like I said, 310 pounds. I was twice divorced, raging alcoholic, coke addict, drug addict, coke dealer, did all the things that you shouldn't do. No kids, no family. No real light at the end of the tunnel to see through. And there was this night that I remember so vividly when I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was 30 years old. I think it was on my birthday, actually. And I remember sitting at this table and we used to play a game. I don't know how many guys used to dabble in the coke, but we had a big glass table. I really don't know this crowd, so sorry if I'm pissing anybody off. But I've got this big round table, big glass round table in my little Cracker Jack house. And there's probably 40 or 50 people in this house. We're having a big party and we're playing snakes. So you put the biggest, fattest line of coke that you can all over the table like this, and then whoever can go the longest without throwing up or dying, I assume, wins, right? So I have this moment when I'm playing snake and the whole room goes quiet. Everybody in my mind, everybody's gone. The music stopped. And I remember looking up. And thinking, I don't know how to make this stop. But I don't belong here. And then I looked down and all the music came flooding back in. And all the people came flooding back in. And I went right back to ripping that line. Went right back to it. Fast forward 6 months later. My quote-unquote prayer was answered. I get pulled over for a fourth offense felony DUI. I've got all kinds of drugs on me in my truck that I've been selling all day. Somehow when I got to the precinct, I was able to slip my personal stash that was in my pocket and flush it before I got booked. And I was being led to jail. And I had this kind of moment where I knew that it was time for a new beginning and a new direction in my life. And that gets me really quick to my grandfather, who didn't know that he was making a new direction in my life back in 1965, 19 years before I was even born, when he started our company, D&M Roofing. Okay? My grandfather raised me. He was basically my dad. But what I learned from him, I learned from other people in the family about how he liked to give back. And I didn't know this about him, and I found out that when he was young and he had nothing, he had no money, he had a job, just like we're all talking about. That's not what we want, right? It's not what we want. But he had a job and he just got by. But when somebody needed something, if somebody needed $20 for rent or groceries, because that was a lot of money back then, you know who they went and asked every fucking time? My grandpa. When they needed a place to stay, because, I don't know, their old lady kicked them out of the house, they didn't have anywhere to stay that night, you know where they went? They went to my grandpa's house. My grandpa knew what meaning was because he could do it on a micro level, right? We see all the influencers doing it on this macro level, but a lot of us, we all have this ability to give back and help on a micro level. He taught me this until the day that he died, when I was sitting next to him. So the first T is trust, right? You can't lead people if they don't trust you. Why? Because trust, listen, trust equals safe, and trust equals follow. Right? People will follow you if they trust you. But if they don't trust you, because remember what we're trying to do here, right? I'm going to go back to the beginning for people that jumped in, right? We're trying to create a cult-like following inside of our company. Right? How do we do that? We want to build a cult, right? We want to build a cult in our company so that people don't ever want to leave at the end of the day. I know that sounds harsh and bad and, gross and whatever, but at the end of the day, that's the type of thing that we're trying to build. So we have to,
Eric,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's easy to do with code.
Yes, we could do it with that. I didn't even see you were there. I was waiting for the cigar picture. So, trust. How do we do that? Everybody here read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Stephen Covey. If you haven't, read it. But one of the things that he talks about in there are trust deposits, right? So what we all need to be doing with our team is making these trust deposits all the time. How do we do that? We do that by doing exactly what we say we're going to do. Right? If you say you're going to do something, if you say you're going to meet somebody at 1 o'clock, don't make it 1:05. And if it is going to be 1:05, you let them know that it's going to be 1:05. You do the same thing with your kids. If you tell your kids you're going to be off a call in 15 minutes to go play with them, you better be off that call in 15 minutes or they're not going to trust you anymore. They're going to start not trusting you because you have to continuously make these trust deposits, because if you have to make a withdrawal and your balance is 0 and you go negative, it's not easy to get out from underneath the hole. Anybody here ever had a negative bank account? I have. Fees start piling up really fast, don't they? And all of a sudden you're going to the what's the cash loan place, right? Going to the cash loan place and you're borrowing $1,000, you got to pay them back $1,500 or $2,000 or whatever it is, like they kill you, right? So if you don't make those trust deposits, if you ever make a withdrawal, you got a long way to go to get back. So first is trust. We have to get people to trust us. The second letter is E. The second pillar is empathy. Sorry. My coach said, you can either be rich or you can be right. If you want to be rich, have empathy. His name's Clay Moffitt, good friend of mine. Does everybody understand that empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person? It's not sympathy. It's empathy, understanding where somebody else is coming from, right? So why is it the difference that makes the difference? It's because it's not common practice. It's not common practice for us to care about what other people care about. We are fucking programmed to care about what we care about. Right? In general, that's how we're wired. So when you go outside of that norm and you show empathy in caring about what another person actually cares about, what did we just do? We also built trust. Right? We're going back to the trust. So it's trust, have empathy, right? What do we do in sales, right? Everybody here is obviously in sales. What are we trying to do? We're trying to understand the client's point of view as well. Right? Every time you get an objection, what's the first thing you say? Somebody say it. What's the first thing you say when you get an objection?
I understand.
Exactly. I understand. I understand how you feel. I understand how you feel. Now, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But when it comes to your team, you need to have some genuine empathy to understand what it is that they care about. You don't have to agree with them. And I tell my people all the time, I don't agree with you necessarily, but I want to understand where you're coming from, right? What else does that breed? Connection. Because you need to be able to connect with your people. Because people don't, if you're this kind of leader or this kind of boss, fucking stop it. But nobody wants to be around the guy that always has to be right. Nobody wants to be around that person. Nobody wants to be around that guy or gal. They want to be around the person that is open to learning and listening. And that's empathy. So the third one, authenticity. This one's my favorite because it's the name of my podcast. Be authentic or get the fuck out. So when you get done listening to Brad's, come listen to mine. Be authentic or get the fuck out. So authenticity. What do I think authenticity is, right? Because everybody's got a different definition of what it is, okay? But since I'm the one speaking today, I'm going to tell you what I think it is. Fair? I think that it's always showing up as exactly who you are. Nobody in this room should be trying to pretend to be Brad. Nobody in this room should be pretending to be Sam Taggart. Nobody should be pretending to be Gary Vee, right? You should be figuring out exactly who you are and then unapologetically showing up as that human every day. Why? Because I believe that nobody wants to work for a fake motherfucker. I think that's true. So how do we do that? Don't preach one thing and do another. Don't preach one thing and do another. An example of this, so where's the roofing guy again? There we go, Zach. So I don't know how long you've been in roofing and if you're involved in watching all the drama and the bullshit unfold online, right? But, well, that, but just in general, right?
Yeah.
Just in general. So there is always somebody throughout the year that you see just blow up on social media, and they hired 100 guys and they did 20 million in 8 months, and right, they got pictures of Lambos and cash everywhere, and it's a big dick measuring contest, and it's a whole thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like 6-8 months later, you don't see him anymore. Right? I've seen that. I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've seen that on numerous occasions. Well, I have a theory, and it's really more than a theory because I know a lot of these people. But why do I think that it happened to almost every single one of them? It's because their people found out exactly who they were.
Yeah.
They sold them a fucking bill of goods that wasn't true. They sold them that they were good people and that they had this culture and they believed in them. They were going to help them grow and they were going to do all these things. But it turns out they were just greedy pricks that only cared about themselves and didn't care about anybody else in the company. They only cared about the profit. And I mean, we all care about profit. It's a business. But they only cared about the money. They only cared about their well-being. And they didn't give a shit about what they were giving back to their people. So they lost them all. They lost everybody in that room. Mm-hmm. You all ask people to follow you. They have to trust you. They have to believe that you care about what they believe in and that you are authentically yourself every time you show up. Okay? Now the last one, M, is meaning. Why do people look for meaning in their jobs and in their lives? It's because they crave it. We all crave meaning. Right? None of us want to be another number. We don't want our people to feel like a number. How many of y'all went to college? I went for a little while before I quit, right? But when you went to college, if you went to a big enough school, what were you known as? I went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and it was a big enough campus that I was known as my social security number. Right? Every time you checked into something or you signed up for something or you called somebody, it was, what's your soc? Not what's your name, but what's your soc? So what do you need to do to give meaning to your people? Okay, now this is groundbreaking. So like get the pen and paper out for this one. Okay? How do you give meaning? You talk to your people. You talk to your people and you find out what they care about. You find out what makes them tick, what they like to give back to. So what we do is every quarter we do a different service, right? One of our core values is service, and we give back, whether it's building a roof for a veteran for free, or it's giving back to our nonprofit, Roofers in Recovery, whatever it is. But what I do is I bring my whole team in, and everybody writes down a nonprofit or a service that they want the company to partake in. And so we take their input and we make sure that we're doing something every quarter to show that we care about what they care about. And so that when they show up to work every single day, they know that their team and their leadership and everybody around them doesn't just give a shit about themselves, that they care about what they care about as well. Does that make sense to everybody? So this is where I usually wrap up my presentation. But what I like to do, if it's okay with everybody, I wanted to finish those stories, if that's okay. Is that all right with everyone? So I want to circle back real fast to my grandpa. My grandpa taught me meaning in a lot of ways. And the most clear was on his deathbed. So he had a day maybe to live. He was in hospice. And he hadn't opened his eyes or spoke for probably 4, 5, 6 days, something like that. And my daughter had just been born. So my daughter was born in May, and my grandpa passed away in July. And I went into the hospice room, and I was sitting next to him. And like I said, he hadn't opened his eyes, he hadn't spoke, he hadn't done anything in a while. And I had a picture of my daughter, Tegan, on my phone. And I held it up to his face and just said, "Hey, Gramp, do you know who that is?" And he fucking opened his eyes. He opened his eyes and he pointed at the picture. And he said, "I love her." And then he closed his eyes. And he didn't open his eyes again. That was the last thing that he said. Meaning to him was his family. And helping his family. And helping everybody around him. And the fact that he loved us and others more than anything in the world was the only reason that he wasn't ready to go when I sat there and held my hand on his chest and felt him, literally felt him, take his last breath. So, circle back to the DUI story real quick. So it was October of 2009 and my ass was going to jail. It was the worst day of my life, or so I thought. It turns out that it ended up being the best day of my life, because what it did is it started a journey. It started a journey for me to become the authentic human being that I was actually born to be. We spoke about this earlier on the podcast with Brad, but there's nobody in this room that was born to be a piece of shit. There was nobody here that was born to make people worry about you and to cry themselves to sleep at night. Nobody was born to make people feel bad. We were born to help. We were born to give back. Today, I should be dead or in jail. But I'm not. I get to give back and I get to help people in my recovery space and change lives. Now, while some of my ex-wives might have thought that it was great if I would have just stayed in jail, I still personally think it would have been a damn shame. So I'm glad that I'm out. Oh, the Taggart story. So I was heading back on the boat, remember? So I was heading back on the boat to go to the dock to get ready to leave, and I was getting ready to lay in to Sam about these fucking kids telling me how I needed to speak, right? And we get back to the boat, and I said, Sam, I go, here's the deal, man. I go, you're great. I go, but you know what? I got to tell you what happened. I was doing the feedback circle, and Cody came up, and he decided to tell me that I needed to change the way I spoke, that I needed to stop saying naughty words, and it offended him, and yada, 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 right? And I was like, I don't feel comfortable with that. Like, I don't want to be around that, and I don't think that I'm going to be re-upping my membership today. And Sam stopped. And remember, like, he's this long-haired Mormon kid from Utah, right? Like, we have nothing in common at all. And I'm expecting him to be like, yeah, you know, Cody's right. Sam stood there and he looked at me and he goes, nah, man. He goes, you're the most authentic dude I've ever met. You don't change who you are based on where you are or who you're with, and you own everything about you. And because of that, people are going to be attracted to you, and they're going to want to be around you, and they're going to want to spend time with you and work for you. So don't change a damn thing about who you are. In that moment, that was the most empathetic moment that I had ever been a part of with another grown man. And because of that moment, I will follow that damn long-haired Mormon kid into a fire. Because he showed me empathy and showed me that he believed in me. Everybody know who Sam Kinison is? There's a Sam Kinison quote that I absolutely live by. He said, it's not about everyone liking you. It's about a small percentage of the world that fucking love you. Love that quote and live by it. When you understand this, and I mean truly understand it, it will change your entire world and you'll become free. Believe me when I say that. Okay? All right, so last one. I want to finish up the shark story. Okay? So I'm sitting on the back of that boat. I am 100% free to stay on the back of that boat. I had the choice as I was staring out into the abyss of what I was going to do. Was I going to trust that little baton to save me from the sharks? Oh, side note, before we went down, they told us that the sharks had names. The tiger sharks had names. This is an absolute true story. One of the sharks' names was Allison, my ex-wife's name. And I'm like, son of a bitch, I'm gonna die underwater by the hands of a shark with my ex-wife's last name. Like, there's no way this isn't happening now. Like, this is just too serendipitous. I'm going to die. But what did I decide to do? I decided to trust. I trusted that those people who had done it before me knew what they were doing and that they weren't going to put me in harm's way. They knew the process. They knew the system, right? And I jumped into the water. I went down there and I sat on the bottom about 50 feet down, and I had my PVC stick sitting in front of me. And no shit, and I wish I had the picture because I've literally got a slide of my PVC stick and Allison coming at the PVC stick and me. No shit, she bumps her nose and she veers off because she knows that the stick's not food. It was intense and it was absolutely amazing, and it made me realize that sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith with that kind of shit. So again, trust, empathy, authenticity, and meaning. If you give those four things to your people on a daily, you will create the cult-like following inside of your company that you need to be able to grow the team.
Hey, you want to spend an hour a week with me helping you become a business badass? Well, check out my group in the link below.
So I don't know, Brad's probably still smoking a cigar, but if anybody's got any questions, I'm open book.
Yeah, let's go to some questions real quick, but when the questions go up, the hands go up.
I see a hand. I see Michael Hudson.
Hey, Eric, appreciate it, man. Quick question. So when you started, like, going years ago, when you first started, like, what was, I guess, the trigger for you to start hiring? Was it like revenue? Was it just like, oh, I can't do all these jobs anymore? Like, what was kind of like the moment when you started hiring?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I hired my first person, I was doing everything myself, like I said before, right? And the first thing I did was that I forced myself into hiring people because I went and bought a property, right? So I went and bought a property and then went, shit, what am I going to do with the property? I need to put people in it. So then I literally started making a list of every single thing that I did. And out of those things, what did I like to do? What took the most time? And which ones did I hate? And I didn't have that much money back then either, right? So I only had like a very limited budget to figure out who to hire. So the first thing I did was I said, man, if I could get somebody to run all these crews, I could go sell more. So my first hire was a production manager. Now, I will completely admit I hovered like a, mom after a newborn. Like I hovered on this guy for probably 5 months, right? Because I was like, I'm so good at production, right? And I didn't want to give it away. But I hovered on this guy for 5 months, and that guy is still in my company today, and not even as a production manager. Because I almost fired him 3 years later as a production manager. He pissed me off. But I liked him so much, and he wanted to be part of our team and our culture so much that I knew I had the right guy, but he was in the wrong seat. And so I found him a new seat, right? And so then after that, that gave me the ability to sell more, which gave me the ability to have more money to hire somebody new, right? And so then I hired a sales guy, because back then I didn't even know you could hire sales guys on commission only. Like I didn't even know that was a thing, right? I thought I had to fucking pay everybody a big salary. Like I was dumb. I had to learn all this shit on my own. All on my own. I did not have this awesome room and Brad Lee teaching me any of this stuff, right? I had to figure it out. But every time I hired somebody, whenever you hire somebody, you better be intentional about the time you free up using it to generate more revenue so that you can reinvest into the company to continue growing it. Because if you use it to go play fucking video games, you're an asshole. Don't do that, right? Be very intentional with that time that you save.
Cool.
Hope that helps.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, somebody.
Thanks a
All
lot.
right. I've got a bunch of hands raised. Let me see how I can find them. Are they in the chat? Nope. I see Gene.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I kind of just want your opinion of an opposite problem.
Okay.
I've had a business for 12 years. I'm trying to leave it.
Okay.
I have 2 managers and my 19-year-old daughter that I'm going to turn over to, but I'm struggling. I don't know how to set them up so that I can leave them.
Is there anybody there that can actually be you?
They can all be a part of me.
No, you need. Here's my opinion.
Different talents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, so here's just my humble opinion, right? And maybe Brad wants to jump in on this. Maybe he's smarter than me on this. But if you don't figure out how to have somebody that is that is steering that ship, like you, I'm sure have, you are not ready to turn it over. You're going to set them up for failure. So you either have to groom one of them to be that person, or you go find that person.
Okay.
In my mind, you cannot hand anything over. I couldn't leave and move. I moved a year ago from Nebraska to Texas and left my business, right? And it is still running just as well, maybe better without me there, because I found the guy that I trusted and knew had the company's best interest at heart all the time and knew how to steer that ship, right?
Yeah.
And that was why I felt comfortable leaving and starting up my life in another state. You have to find that person that is the leader that can steer the ship. It can't be 4 people that work together. that are all a piece of
Yeah.
Gene. That's not going to fucking work. They're all going to want to be the leader. They're going to fight, and they're all going to break up, and then you're going to be sad because your business is dead that you gave to them. So my suggestion is,
And then on top of that, Gene, you're probably going to say, I knew it. I
yeah,
knew it. I knew better. I
There's
knew
a lot,
better.
yeah.
I knew they couldn't do it. Damn it.
And you
That's what a lot
don't-
of times we
and you-
do is we second guess our intuition. If you don't feel like there's anybody there that can take that thing at least 70% as well as you can, then Eric's right. You're not ready to lead, but you're doing the right thing though. You have to get set up and prepared for that, because people don't understand when you build a business, if you build yourself a business where you're required, you built yourself a job. That's all you did.
Yep.
I don't care that you own the business. You are owned by the business. So like if you ever stop, the business stops. That's not a business, in my opinion. My opinion is exactly what you're heading for, where you're making money from a business and you don't do shit except look at the numbers and give high fives
Yep.
and spankings.
yep,
That's the goal. And by the way, when it comes to culture, I've always struggled with it. Like I said, I didn't really ever think it was real. Some of the best culture I've ever seen built in an organization. One, Andy Elliott's got a great culture.
Yep.
Two, Andy Frisella from First Form, unbelievable culture. And everything that you said, technically that is what they're doing. My problem with that is when I get to the empathy part, because I do have empathy naturally. I think
Yep.
I'm an empath. However, when I think I'm going to give you $20,000 a month and you're going to do this for me, I guess it's just the entrepreneur owner mentality where it's like, I don't care what you fucking feel like. Okay, do your fucking job or tell me you don't want the money. It's like simple. I need someone that's going to do what I want them to do, not try and dictate how I get them to do it. When you told that story, I had someone one time, she quit over it, ended up freaking the only suit I've ever had in my whole entire business career from an employee was this one. And it got thrown out, but she basically was sitting there and I said something and she didn't like the way I said it. She said, well, you could say it like this, that, and the other thing. And I said, listen, it shouldn't matter how I say it. I'm just trying to make sure you understand. Do you understand? Yeah, okay, then go do it. And she's getting like visibly heated by this. Now, again, to me, I wish I was a good leader like everybody else, but apparently I'm not a good leader. I'm a good visionary, I guess. Because I said, hey, if you don't like it, I can understand that. You don't have to do it. You do have the right to quit, And she said, okay, fine, I quit. What do I do? And I said, what do you do? I said, you don't even know how to quit? Which was making my point. Okay, you don't even know how to quit. Like that's pitiful. I said, you stop doing whatever it is you were doing when I was paying you, and I'll stop paying you. That's how you quit. And so she quit.
and so she quit.
That's actually the point, Brad. They can do the tasks, they can run the day-to-day, they don't have the vision.
Right.
Well, that's your job, though.
I don't know, yeah, it's
listen,
how to
listen,
instill the vision.
Well, you don't instill it, you provide it. You're never going to put your vision in their heads. You're going to tell them your vision successfully, and they're going to execute on it. So the question is, are you able to convey your vision clearly? And if you're not, well, whose fault is that?
So little bracelets that say, what would Gene do, that they all wear every day? I mean,
Dude, what would Gene do? I do that all the time around here, and I try to tell my people, my project managers that walk people through here. Because like my technology, our learning technology that we have is like second to none, obviously. But the real value of doing business with me is 24 years of experience in the network that I have. So at the end of the day, it's like you can use Lightspeed and go out there and put something together that's half-assed, or you could use Lightspeed, the company, and they'll use the Lightspeed system to make something world-class. So what's the difference between half-assed and world-class? To me, vision. So when I do it with a customer like I did with Grant and Joe Verdi and all these people that made millions of dollars a month using my technology, well, they were just excellent students at the end of the day. Why? Well, because they executed. See what I'm saying? So I told them the vision. They didn't have to have it. And then they executed and built it. So if you're good at executing the vision, explaining the vision and selling the vision, really, then you're not going to have a problem. You just, have a weekly or monthly meeting with your team. You set your KPIs and your benchmarks, and you say, here's what needs to happen for you guys to continue to run this bitch. Dude, what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed. Just remember that.
When it comes to vision too, the other thing that I try to do is I try to get the team to be part of the vision. I try to get them to really buy into it, because then it's not just mine.
I know,
Right?
but see, that's where Eric, I need your help. I'm falling short with my teams. Why? Because for some reason I got this ornery hair that says, fuck you.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't need you to fucking, I'd like you to be a part of it. That's why I'm paying.
I think that every
Okay,
time.
Do your part. I'll do my part and pay you.
Yeah.
People will come in, they're like, and I'll say, why didn't you do that? Did your check bounce?
Yeah, I get it. I think the same thing. I've done it like that before, and I lost people, and I don't like having to hire. I don't like having to hire more people.
See, I don't mind hiring because I have a training system.
You do have a great training system, yeah, 100%. I like to keep them, but I like to keep them as long as I can, so that I
And
don't.
in order to do that, I got to start including them.
Yeah,
Ew.
sorry. I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do.
Oh man, listen. The beatings will continue until the attitude's improved.
Oh, so many things to say. Okay, Teresa, you're up. Sorry, you've been waiting.
Thanks. So I just had a quick question. I have started hiring a few people, and I guess my question is, when you're, what is your metrics, or what are the most important? What is the most important thing that you think when you're hiring a salesperson? When you're hiring, like, what kind of attributes, skills? What is it that you typically look for that you've found has been successful? Because I've had a few people come in, and some people do really well, and some people you think are going to do really well, have a great background, and then they fall off. And so I'm just curious, how you evaluate. This is all new to me, so
Yeah.
how does you evaluate? Salespeople.
I keep
hires.
on hires when I'm interviewing or my team's interviewing somebody. We focus on if they have a track record of effort and attitude. I don't give a shit if you know anything else.
Okay.
Can I chime in my answer?
Please.
Because I've worked with a lot of salespeople over my years, and it's the ones sometimes you don't even expect to kick ass, and then some of them that you expect to kick ass don't. Mm-hmm. And I've measured everything from this to that, and it boils down to two things, I believe: empathy and sense of humor. If you're funny and you're empathetic, you're a fucking shoo-in.
Funny's good. Love
And
funny.
empathy.
Yep.
And empathy, dude. You got to be good at putting yourself in the customer's shoes.
Have to.
When I sell people things, I'm not talking to them from my perspective. I'm talking to them from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting myself in their shoes. I know exactly what they feel like. I know what they're gonna feel like if they don't do what I want them to do. I already know where they're going and where they've been and I can even tell them that they don't really want what they think they do. Like, I love it when people say, let me go think about this. I say, well, let me give you 15 things to think about. Because otherwise you're going to go think about some shit and realize later there was a whole bunch more shit to think about. You'll have to go think about it again. So how about I just tell you everything to go think about, and then you come back once.
Everybody that was here for the whole thing, if you remember, that was exactly what we talked about, is that we do that with our clients. So why wouldn't we do it with our people? It's the same thing, right? If we do it with our clients, we do it with our people to keep them around, because that's why they're going to want to stay. You're selling your people all the time to be part of your vision and to be part of your team, because they're the ones that are going out and making you money.
I have the core team that I have.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, the core team that I have, they're great, and I think that I'm an extremely empathetic person, probably like to the nth degree. I give people too many chances.
That's tolerance. That's not.
Yeah, that's tolerance. That's not empathy.
Yeah, I need to grow a backbone. But I've had some people that come in that like right out of the gate, seem like they're going to do great. They're hard workers, whatever. And then for whatever reason, they start falling off, and we'll have one-on-ones. We'll talk about what's going on. And then I find that like, there's a little bit like negative Nancy, and I'm going to use some grown-up words, so I hope nobody's offended, but little bitch voices. Like, they're just like, they just whine and complain and bitch and moan, and it's like,
Can I ask you a question?
please,
You work for a big company, or is it your company?
it's me.
Okay, well, you're the leader. You're the one setting the tone. You're the one allowing and tolerating bitching and whining, which will cause other people to bleed into bitching and whining. So
Well,
if
I
you
don't
are-
tolerate it. That's the problem. And I'm
Well,
not,
then-
I'm not a whiner. And so that's what I'm saying. Those people are the ones that fall off. But how do
Well,
I
that's good,
guess it is good, but my thing is like, how do I, is there a way to predetermine that? Like when you're talking to somebody, when you're vetting somebody, before you bring them on board, before you spend a shit ton of time with them, training them, teaching them, like all these other things, is there a way or a method that you've found, either one of you or anyone in this room has
Yes.
found, please?
Well, one of the ways I found are these psychological tests that you can get. So what you would do is like, you would take the psychological test and it would create markers. And then as people applied, you would have them take the same psychological test and you'd be looking for candidates with the same markers or similar markers as yours. That's the closest way to actually doing it. Otherwise, there is no way, because when people interview, they're saying whatever it is they think you want them to say, and they sometimes are really good at it, and we make mistakes hiring people. But I've always told somebody, this one guy told me one time, hire slow and fire fast.
I've heard that before too.
Yeah, but dude, listen, and sometimes, especially when it comes to certain positions, dude, I don't need 2 years to fucking hire somebody. I need to hire someone now. So when I walk them in, I'm going to ask them a couple of questions. Number one, I say, hey, let me ask you a question. Do you think you're lucky? Are you a lucky individual? If they say no to that question, I lollygag and say, thanks for coming in. I'm already done. I don't do people with pessimistic and scarcity mindsets. Like they won't fit around here.
That's a great
Because
question. I'm stealing that.
Yeah.
When I'm walking around talking about abundance and more and potential and all this fun shit and exciting shit, and they're sitting there in their mind thinking that's a bunch of bullshit. I don't buy
Sky
any
is falling.
crap. Sorry, big old loud car went by. Did you guys hear that car?
Yeah.
See how fucking stupid those big loud ass things are?
Yeah.
And I ain't talking about a beefy engine. I'm talking about you put on glass pack so it goes bah, all loud and fucking causes alarms to go off.
You got roofers in the
Anyway.
room. You got roofers in the room, Brad. That's all we know how to do.
So I can tell you
Hey,
this.
my truck's lifted, that's it.
I can tell you this, dude. I hate every single one of them, especially the really loud rice burners.
Oh yeah, that's just dumb. Yeah, agreed.
But back to Teresa. Listen, you're going to make mistakes, and this is what the point I wanted to make. Making mistakes is not that bad as long as you learn from them. I've made so many mistakes in life. I can't tell you how many mistakes I've made. I've made more mistakes than the average person. And I believe that's part of why I'm where I'm at, because you learn, you move on, you now know, you're educated the best way possible. My book that I wrote, the opening line is, death is the best teacher, but we can't afford the lesson. What that means is basically the way you learn the fastest is get killed from whatever stupid ass shit you did, and you would learn faster than anything, but you'd be dead. So the next best thing is to freaking, obviously in my opinion, learn from someone else's mistake. So if your question is there anything that would help me identify and isolate better candidates? Yes, those are psychological profile tests. I can send you a few links to where, I know where people get them. There's all kinds of them. Eric, I'm sure you've seen those.
Yep.
So you can psychologically profile people, but I'm telling you, you'll still screw up.
I make mistakes on the daily, so I get it.
To me, the way I look at it is this. If you read my employee handbook, I think I shared it with the group, didn't I? I wrote the employee handbook that we have around here from scratch. It's pretty fucking detailed. But part of it basically just says our policies are, just like be kind, be cool. Like dude, if you're a dick, you can't be here. We're gonna ask you to leave the party. I call it a party, you know. And not only that, this is a production, and this is all a cast. So when I audition people, which is what I do, I have different rules than an employer, because this is a production. So this is a cast, and you can create different roles in your organization that you can fill differently. So the way I look at it is, look, if you fit in, like if I want you over at my house, if we're gonna hang out and fish, well then you can hang out at my office. But if you're a weirdo, if you're a dick, if you're like a pessimist, if you're a freaking whack job, if you're a complainer, if you're a whiner, if you're negative, if you're sue happy, like I love it when I hear people say something stupid like, well, the law says, and I'm like, that's stupid. You don't say that to an employer.
No, do not say that. Red flag.
Okay.
But you know, I was going to start an invention. Someone here could do it if you want. I even own the domain. If you want to partner in it, we can. It's called nightmareemployees.com. Nightmare Employees. Imagine a registry, Eric.
Oh.
We're all
That's
dirtbags.
brilliant.
Hey, all dirtbags that get in this registry, dude. All you do
Yeah.
is you subscribe as an employer. You run their name in the nightmare employee list, and if it's in there, dude, do not hire them.
Wow, I love that.
You can make it industry specific.
I'd
You can
invest
make it
in that.
industry specific.
Yep.
I would too.
Genius.
Love that. You got time for another question, Brad, or you want to wrap up?
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think I don't know where the order came in, so I'm sorry if you put your hand up first. But my first top left is Adam.
What's up, dude?
up?
I was earlier we were talking about roofing, so I have a couple businesses, but I own a medium-sized roofing company. We do mostly new construction. I've kind of don't really have time, haven't had time to put into it to go after re-roofs and insurance, and we're kind of in a niche area where it's very affluent. So a lot of new houses being built that are multi-million dollars. So it's enough just to keep guys busy. My main question for you was more kind of a personal deal with the company is, how are you doing? Are all of your crews in-house, or are they all subs?
All subs.
Okay. So do you have any guys that work for whatever your roofing company name is at all? Any repair guys?
Not that install the roofs, but I've got like I have quality control guys, production guys, and then on my commercial team, I've got my commercial production guys will also do repairs. So they'll run the crews and make sure they're doing everything to spec and be out in the field, watching and helping or whatever. But then they also have the ability to go do TPO repairs and EPDM repairs and whatever, and go check out multifamily stuff, if needed. So I do, but none of my in-house guys like work on crews. They manage the crews to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do, and then they can go out and do repairs that will sell on the commercial side.
That was kind of the biggest hindrance that I've had as far as growing it is.
Yep.
With a lot of these builders here, all my guys I have one in-house crew, and then I have multiple sub crews. But the in-house crew, they fall under my insurance, my workers' comp, and more than anyone how crazy that is.
Yep.
So, I'm trying to get rid of them. Most of them are Hispanic, and it's just you've got to kind of do it for them.
So what I did is I help my sub crews build their own business, so that they have their own business and then they stay loyal to me. And if I say jump, they say how high, because I help them get insurance. I help them get work comp. I help them learn how to start an LLC. I got them somebody to help them with a work comp and GL audit at the end of the year. I taught them all of those things, and they're like, holy shit, Eric is my favorite contractor. And
That's right.
I'll get him to leave at somebody else's job to come do one for me because I invested that much time and effort into them.
And that's a problem that I have too, is I don't have problems getting, a new job complete or a re-roof done.
Yep.
It's more, it's a repair, it's a storm comes through and it's like, man, it's hard. If they're not your people, it's hard to get them.
You need to have one guy that's able to do that, I would say, as a small company. You got to have one guy that's like quality control, checking on jobs, you know what I mean, and able to go do repairs. So I think that's definitely a hire if you're going to grow that side. That, I mean, back to the question of how do you hire, like that's obviously your first hire. So, and again, and for roofers in here, here's the thing, guys, I don't sell shit. I don't sell coaching. I don't sell anything. I've got podcasts, my roofing company, and I do some other stuff and I speak, but I don't sell anything. So like, if you look me up and you want to ask me a question, like feel free. Okay. Like you can look me up and ask me a question. Zach, I know you were waiting a while too.
Yeah, so I just had a question, roofing specific, I guess. We talked about reps and how hard they are to bring on, especially how hard they are to keep.
Yep.
So I'm hiring all the time, right? Hiring never ends, especially in roofing sales. And I'll take these guys out and I'll hit the streets with them. And it just comes so easy for me, and I'm training them everything I know. I'm showing them the vision. I'm showing them what I've done in years past in roofing sales, and showing them examples of other guys that I've had and I've trained and how well they've done in a matter of just a few weeks. And you get a lot of people who are big talkers. They come in, they have XYZ sales experience from whatever company. They tell you they're going to go out there and get after it and whatever. And I feel like I feel like when you compare my company to other local businesses, like our pay structure, our comp plan is the best. And I've had people tell me that they come from other companies, like, dude, you pay a lot. Like, because we do bonus incentives, our compensation is great, just overall, just phenomenal pay rate. And I'm not asking for a lot. Like, these guys aren't managing jobs. They're simply just selling. Everything else is managed through the back end. They're not doing any paperwork, nothing. And they're still getting paid just as much, if not more, than somebody at another company who sales and manages everything. Yeah. So I guess my question would be, how are you bringing these guys in? How are you keeping them around enough to where you can kind of get that snowball effect going? Because I know tons of buddies. A friend of mine, a $100 million company. Yeah. He's got 100 reps, and I'm trying to keep 10. Yeah.
So I don't know what the 100 rep guy does. I can tell you what I do, and it's literally what I just talked about for 45 minutes.
It's going through the whole team's process.
Well, so yeah, it's going through those and figuring out. It's also, yes, you need to do all of them, right? But it's also figuring out what is that person lacking maybe in their life, right? Mm-hmm. So I just started up that new branch, right? Like I said, in Texas, right? And it took me in Nebraska 3, 4, 5 years to build that team that I have now that like I don't worry about. I check in with them every day, but like I'm only there once a month. Like they're on cruise control, right? And I trust them. And down in Texas, I was trying to recreate the same thing, and I'm like, man, I hope this doesn't take 3 years, right? Like it did before. Right. I did it in 4 months, right?
And that's what interests me, right?
And I did it in 4 months. Now, I found the leader first. I found the guy that was going to lead right underneath me, and that he had the exact same vision and the exact same mentality and the same mindset. He understood what the D&M difference was and how we're different and how we act and treat people. I found that guy first, right? Because I needed to have that extension of me for when I'm not there. And then as I hired these guys on, because I had the same thing. I had a guy come in, I'll blow him out of the fucking water. And right, like they say that shit all the time. And then they come in and you're like, dude, you're laying goose eggs. And like this kid that's 20 years old is running circles around you, right? Well, what I found out was just this guy in particular, I found out he wasn't really bought in to the team. He wasn't really bought into the culture, and he still felt like he was on an island, right? So I did the simplest thing. I put together a party at my house. I invited everybody and their families over, got to know everybody's kids, got to know everybody's wives. I catered in food. The kids went swimming, right? We all sat down and broke bread together, not at work, not at the work kitchen, right? I brought them in and I got them to see everybody as a human entity and as a team, and then sent them out to do some training. Next week, I sent him and 3 guys away for 3 days. They just went to Top Rep in New Braunfels, sent them up there. And they came back, and every single one of them came back, and they're like, dude, I get it now. I get it. Like, I'm here to stay. I can't believe I didn't get it before, but I'm here. Now, that doesn't mean that something else might not happen, right? Like, you can't do it once. I think it's about being consistent in showing them that you want them there. right? Because we have to. This is what I always have to remind myself. I don't have to be right. I just have to get what I want.
A bunch of
It's
stuff.
documentation and KPIs. Are you tracking what they do? And are you setting the expectations with them in the beginning of this is what you have to do? Because if we're going straight now to business, right, you have to track your KPIs. And if you have a conversation with somebody when they start and you say, this is what's expected of you, X, Y, and Z. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, then these are the consequences of. If you do X, Y, and Z plus one, this is what you get extra because of that. So when you don't do X, Y, and Z, and we come back and have this conversation in my office, it's going to be uncomfortable. Understand that it's because I already told you what the expectations are. So this shouldn't be a hard conversation to say that maybe you need to move on because you're not succeeding here, right? At the end of the day, all tolerance, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, if you think I'm wrong, but I think all tolerance comes down to tracking KPIs and keeping people accountable.
I have something here called nothing personal.
Nothing personal. Love that.
It's very simple. When I hire you, I tell you, this is what we're hiring you to do.
Yep.
This is good.
Yep.
This is bad.
Yep.
If you go below here,
Yeah.
here's what happens.
Yeah.
If you go above here, here's what happens.
Yeah.
So it's nothing personal.
Tracking accountability, and it's nothing personal, right? You set those expectations in the beginning, and then it can't be personal.
It's not personal.
It's not personal at the end.
But if they have like, let's say they have a tough week and they're not killing their KPIs, you're like, okay, let's see next week. And then it goes, it's good.
Well,
And
are
then
you
next one-
setting expectations that if they don't do it every week, then they're gone? Or are you setting expectations that they have a week to recover, or they have a monthly whatever, right? Like, so it's whatever you're setting. It's whatever you're setting it as. So you better be comfortable with whatever accountability you're setting and making sure that it's fair, obtainable, and it's reaching the goals that you want for the company as well.
My rule here for my sales team anyway, if I have to pay them the salary, because it's a draw
Yep.
salary or commission,
Yep.
if I have to pay you the draw more than 3 months in a row,
Yep. I do the same thing. I do 3 months. And if they don't hit numbers after that long, then they're gone. And they know that when they're hired.
now they know that when they're hired here too. So
Yep.
like, first month, hey dude, you didn't hit your numbers. What's going on? How can I help you? You need
Yep.
training, you need this. I have what's called 3T policy here. The 3T policy. Train, tolerate, or terminate. And I always tell people, we don't tolerate. See that?
I like that.
You train, tolerate, or terminate, and we don't tolerate. So which one do you want? Do you want to train or do you want to terminate? And I leave it up to them. And they say, well, I'd like to train. And I say, perfect, great. I have to now consider you an apprentice because you're no longer, the position I hired, right? I need to now train you to do that. So you're an apprentice and I whack your pay 30%.
I love that.
And then I'll raise your pay again once you're able to do the job. Train, tolerate, or terminate. And most people will say, I'll train. And then you say, great. But if you don't have a training for them, well, then that doesn't work too well. Because if they say train and you're like, I'm not sure what you're supposed to do. Because there's a lot of people out there, they don't know what the position's supposed to do. And they own the company. It's like someone else, put that in place. But at the end of the day, man, you gotta look at it like this. Here's the way I am. And again, I would argue that, I'm not the best culture-driven guy in the world. Like, I was a team player back in the day, but like I quit basketball because one time I snatched the ball out of the opponent's hands and ran down and made a fucking layup for the wrong side. I ran to their basket and fucking threw up a layup right in front of the whole school. So the embarrassment made me quit basketball, but I also didn't like guarding people. So like I would play and I would shoot, but I ain't guarding anybody. Dude, that's not a good team player. Like they did the right thing getting me out of there. Like you don't want a team player like that. So if you're sitting there in your organization and you see somebody that's like that, dude, it's not a question of should you let them go. The question is how quickly should you? And the answer to that is always immediately. The second you're questioning somebody that's the time to let them go. So when you're like, when do you think? The second you start questioning somebody, pop them. I've been wrong more times than I've been right whenever I don't pop them. And believe it or not, I hate firing people. So at the end of the day, sometimes I'll go a year thinking, man, this person isn't the right person. And then a year goes by and they're still not the right person. But now when you go to pop them, they got a longer track record. I remember this one lady, I felt bad for her, so I gave her a raise because, when I hired her, I only paid her like $4,000 a month. She had kids, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, I'll move you to $5,000 a month. Then that was one of the ones we were complaining about. And finally, we get rid of her. And the people that they're filing her lawsuit said, well, if she was such a bad employee, why were you giving her raises? And I'm like, because I felt sorry for her. And they're like, yeah, okay, sure. Like there's an employer out there that feels sorry for their employees. Yeah, there are. I'll bet you more than just me. But at the end of the day, I should have popped her the second you think of it, I believe. He might have a different answer. But my answer, when do you pop somebody?
I think it depends on the person.
Well, of course it depends. He said it depends on the person, but which it does. I mean, they've been kick ass for 2 years and they're having a little bit of a fuck up session. Give them a couple months and, hopefully that'll correct itself. But if you just hired them and they're dicking around like right off the bat, dude, you just boop. Sorry, you're not in here. You're not to it because it's always going to end up the way you thought it would. I've never really seen anybody that I had bad feeling about that ended up being my best person ever. Your intuition kind of tells you a little bit, and then the rest is unfortunately results. Like measure by numbers. Don't remove emotion out of it. That's what I do. Now again, that's probably not the way to build a big family culture. Like I don't want everybody that works here over at my house. I got people here that voted for Biden.
I would let them come over.
Huh? I do. I got people here that are fully fucking vaxxed. And they voted for Biden.
I still care about those people.
And when I say, hey, who here wants to get rich? They don't raise their hand. They look at me like I'm some sort of asshole for wanting to be rich. And I think to myself, how'd they get hired? But no, I don't pop them because guess what? They're doing their job. I don't really care who you voted for. I don't care if you're freaking gay. I don't care what you are if you're doing the job. If you're not doing the job, it's nothing personal. I got to have someone to do this job. I'm going to exchange this resource, which is money. Money's a resource. I trade this resource to get this done. If that's not getting done for this exchange, who's ripping who off? They're ripping me off. Well, if I know someone's ripping me off and I allow it, whose fault is it? It's not the person's. It's mine for allowing it.
Yeah.
Yee. All right. Hey, you got one more question here.
Okay.
Brandon.
Thanks, Brad, and thanks, Eric.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, Eric, quick question. So the way you structure your commission, how does that work for your company? And I know Zach owns a roofing company as well. I don't know if you want to chime in too. Just out of curiosity, how's your commission structured?
I do two different comp plans, depending on the person, the situation they're in, whatever. I've got a full commission structure that I run it on an 8, 10, 11 model where you're based at 8%. You get a 2% bonus to be bumped to 10 quarterly if you hit expectation numbers, and then another 1% if you hit your goal number for the quarter. And then if you are a pussy and need a base, then I pay you a $40,000 base that includes truck and gas allowance, and I give you a 5% commission with an opportunity for a 2 and a 1 quarterly.
Okay. And then are your guys 1099 or W-2?
Everybody that works for me is a W-2 that's sales. And then I offer health care.
Okay. And I know what's yours look like, Zach?
So all my sales guys are 1099 and they're paid 10% on the gross. And then if they're out if they're getting referrals and they're not out there to hit the doors every day and they're top performers, I want to keep them around and they're managing teams, I'll give them 12. And then if they're building teams and managing teams of their own, I give them overrides. So you can me 12% and get 3% overrides on people on your team.
Yeah, we do overrides as well on team leads. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
to go back, there was one thing earlier, Zach. I think maybe you said it too, and I forgot to mention something. But you had said like you said you have a very aggressive pay scale, which you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And mine is not as aggressive,
Right.
right? And I still don't.
But he'll give him Coke.
I'll give him Coke. But I don't have as much turnover.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? So at the end of the day, a lot of times, like some of the other stuff does matter.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other stuff does matter because I get guys staying that know that they could go somewhere else and make 2 more points.
But the Coke stepped on.
But the Coke is stepped on. But I get them
No,
to
it
stay.
interests me that your guys are W-2. I've never seen a roofing company structured with W-2.
Yeah, I do it because I want them to feel more like they're not on an island and only working for themselves. And the other thing is that your fucking 1099s aren't really 1099s. And if you ever get audited, you're going to get fucked anyway. So because you're providing them stuff, you're providing them training, you're telling them where to go, you're going to fail the IRS test every time. So I just stopped taking the chance. So I put everybody W-2, and then I was able to offer healthcare. I'm one of the few roofing companies that offers their guys healthcare. So like they come in and they're like, holy shit, you're a roofing company and you offer healthcare? I'm like, yep. They're like, I want to work for this guy.
Yeah, that's new. Everybody I hear is
Yep.
10, you know,
Yep,
here's-
yep. I'm one of the early adopters. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yep. I think it builds culture.
Mm-hmm.
And again, obviously that's something that I'm pretty passionate about.
They feel hooked.
Yep.
You know, they're in.
Yep. Yep.
Does anybody remember the courtship of Eddie's father? Nobody's old enough.
No.
Courtship of Eddie's father, where the dad and the little boy, they're like besties, father and son. They have a song that says, "Let me tell you about my best friend." You never heard of that?
No.
Anyway, what you do is you take your top employee, and you have a camera guy go with you to lunch, right? And you film the lunch. Then you have the camera guy slow motion edit some of the things together and make a little montage of you and this employee spending time together during the day. And you send it to him and you tell him it was one of the best lunches you ever had, right? And the company was even better. And then you put the theme song to Eddie's father on there. Let me tell you about my best friend. And they got a little souvenir of you guys going to lunch, and they can play it when they get down.
Try that.
I'll bet you it works.
That does.
People will be like, "Oh, that was cute." Yeah, again, it's funny to see all the different leadership styles come through Lightspeed. You know, I can tell you this though: if I was better at building teams and cultures, I'd probably already be a billionaire. But again, like if you read How to Win Friends and Influence People, I do the opposite. I tell people, like, someone will close a deal, instead of a high five, I'll be like, "Well, fuck, it's about time." But see,
I do that too, and I shouldn't do that.
I know, but like I grew up in that environment, and I think if you're busting their balls and having fun, that's what's fun. That's what kept me wanting to go to the car dealership every day and work bell to bells, because everybody's hanging out, telling jokes, capping on each other, having fun. Every day you're going to work, looking forward to seeing everybody that's there and have fun and close deals and make money, and like the culture was that.
Yep.
But when you build a company, you kind of almost have to, like sell them the vision. Well, I try to sell people the vision sometimes, and they see it. They just don't care. Like I'm talking about, hey, let's get the knowledge from the people who have it to the people who need it, so everyone can, have better lives, make more money, just have a better life, better holidays, better birthdays, better relationships, because that's what happens when you give the right information to the right people. And we got a platform to do that. Nobody comes in here enthusiastic about that shit. At 5 o'clock, I already know it's 5 o'clock without even looking at my watch, because I hear all the footsteps clobbering out of here. I swear to you, I've been on a call before and I'm like, "Oh, it must be 5. And he goes, "Why?" I said, "Because everybody's leaving." And in order to leave right at 5 o'clock, in my opinion, you had to have been looking at the clock at fucking 4:55. Okay, so now you're a clock watcher. And you ever heard of a camouflaged hole? A camouflaged hole is more dangerous than a hole because you don't know that the hole is there. So it's more dangerous. And sometimes you have an employee in a position where you think you have someone covering that position and you don't. That's a camouflaged hole. So you think you got someone good, handling your customer service as examples, and they don't give a shit. They're clock watchers. They don't give a rat's dick how your company does or if your customers are happy or not. And then when do you find out finally that you have a camouflage hole? When you got a big problem on your hands. So how do we get better at hiring? How do we get better, reading people? Well, again, to me, I always look at the numbers game. If I don't hire slow and fire fast, I hire fast and fire fast. Because I'll find the right people faster that way, I believe. But the biggest lesson I would give you guys before we shut it down is make sure that you get rid of all the freaking weak people that you can. Because when you do finally find and or attract a really, strong, talented individual, they're not going to stick around a bunch of clowns. So if you got half your crew as clowns because you're afraid to go backwards a little bit, you don't want to downsize, but you got half clowns walking around, and then you get someone that's really good that would have freaking thrived if it was smaller and tighter knit and better culture, and you know what I mean, like a culture of excellence versus having a bunch of, I call them turkeys walking around. You're going to lose the stallion. Because stallions don't run with turkeys. And that's what people don't realize. You ever see stallions running across the plains in like a movie where they're all majestic and shit running across the field? You ever notice the turkeys in between their feet?
Never looked at the turkeys.
That's because there aren't any turkeys. Okay, the stallions don't run with turkeys. Okay, get rid of your turkeys. Don't be afraid to get rid of your turkeys. Trust me, I want to tell you. All right, well, hey, you guys know where to follow Eric. It's just at Oberemt. Oberemt, just like it spells, Oberebt. Or no, EMBT.
There you go, you got it.
Oberemt.
And be authentic or get the fuck out.
Yeah, be authentic or get the fuck out. I'll go win the week. We'll see you next Wednesday. Peace.
And you said the problem with the lead business is, what'd you say the problem was?
Yesterday's best lead vendor is today's worst. They're always changing.
Well, again, I'm just getting I'm new into it, so I don't know everything, but I do see that. But I also see pussy salesmen.
Oh, definitely.
You give someone 1,000 leads and they call the first 5 and they're not fucking interested. Or someone said, stop calling me, you fuckers. There's 9 of you have called me so far.